Police and Borders and Coast Guards are on heightened alert following the Ceuta border crisis. Unite members who took part in the ballot have voted to accept the 5-year public sector pay deal. While the GGCA accuses Unite of trying to poach its members in the Gibraltar bus company. Good evening. Police, as well as the Borders and Coast Guard Agency, are on heightened alert following the Ceuta border crisis, but the government says there's no reason for alarm locally. It says Gibraltar's immigration, employment and residence laws remain fully in force, and that entering Spain, or the Schengen area in general, irregularly does not give anyone the right to enter or settle in Gibraltar.
Spain is deploying military personnel to Ceuta today after thousands of migrants crossed from Morocco into the enclave. The armed forces are being sent to support the Guardia Civil there, as the regional government describes the situation as a humanitarian and security emergency. Ceuta's president, Juan Jesus Vivas, has called for action from Spain's central government, while the Interior Ministry says Spain and Morocco have agreed to strengthen measures to prevent further crossings and review the return of those who entered illegally. The Spanish Premier, Pedro Sánchez, and the Interior Minister, Fernando Grande Marlaska, are travelling to Ceuta today. The Gibraltar government says it is following the emergency with deep concern, although it believes there is no cause for alarm locally. It has expressed condolences to the families of those who have died and solidarity with the people of Ceuta, as well as Spanish emergency services and humanitarian organisations responding to the crisis.
Unite members who took part in a ballot have voted to accept the 5-year public sector pay deal agreed with the government. The union says 76.2% voted in favour, although only 21.5% of the membership took part. In an interview via Zoom, Unite's national officer, Stuart Davies, acknowledged that turnout in the ballot was disappointing, but said the result represented clear support for agreement among those who did vote.
In very broad terms, I mean, there are some outstanding issues that we're dealing with. There are some ancillary points that we need to deal with, but in broad terms, we feel that it's a significant deal for our members. We think it is unprecedented in terms of both its length, but also the fact that it addresses ongoing IRP, but it also looks back and addresses the real-term losses in pay that have been experienced since August 2019. That's what we set out to achieve in our pay claim in 2025. And as I say, aside from some ancillary issues that we need to work through, we're very pleased to have reached this conclusion.
Of course, just over 20% of the membership actually took part. So does that really give you a mandate to accept the offer?
Absolutely. I mean, we would like clearly for there to be a greater participation from our members. The feedback that we were receiving very much was that members were broadly comfortable with what was announced at Budget 2026. Clearly, that would have then fed through into a lower participation rate. So yes, we'd like to have had a more resounding turnout, but the yes vote itself was overwhelmingly in favour of accepting the pay deal. And therefore, in a democratic process, we don't have any thresholds in terms of how many people should be voting. In the same way, last year we were being criticised for seeking to take industrial action against the turnout. Likewise here, we will take action in terms of the turnout we've received. So we'd like to have had a higher turnout, but we're comfortable to be accepting it based upon the turnout and the yes vote that we received.
The General and Clerical Association says it will also hold a vote to ensure members are satisfied with the deal. However, its president, Darren Sedisola, said members were balloted before the negotiations on what they would be willing to accept.
We are going to have a vote to make it official, and we are in the process. I don't know if they already actually got the numbers back, but we were preparing the ballots. Although I have to tell you that we had already had the mandate from the members. We had already balloted what it was that the members were willing to accept, which is exactly what we have negotiated. So for us, it would be just to ensure that members are happy with what they have, and going back and saying, right, we are now 110% sure. but we already voted before the actual negotiations to see and know how low or high were the members, and what were the members prepared to accept and not to accept, so that we could make it very clear to the government what it was, what we were prepared to accept and not accept, as to not to waste time.
Meanwhile, the GGCA has accused Unite of trying to poach its members in the Gibraltar Bus Company. Mr. Celisola claims Unite invited GGCA members to a meeting after having previously denied that they would do so. Last year, GBC reported that bus company members had defected from Unite to the GGCA, which then gained negotiating rights, as Mr. Celisola spoke with Cristina Cortes.
We got information that basically Unite was holding a meeting with our members, which that is considered obviously an act of poaching. I wrote an email to Mr. Davis. He very diplomatically replied back and denying the allegations. Then he went on to talk about dual membership. So we found out about the meeting. We went down to the bus company only to find out that what we were saying was correct. Mr. Davis himself had flown from Bristol, all the way from Bristol, to poach members. So he was there with our membership. We have the negotiating rights for the bus company. He knows it. Yet, like I say, he took the liberty of meeting with our members. He wants to say, and he wants to give the excuse about dual membership. The reality is that he was poaching. Like I said, he knows we have negotiating rights. He knows that we have already negotiations ongoing. Yet, like I said, he went down and decided to see what he could do in terms of to bring members which he had lost to the GGCA, to bring his members, which are mine, back to Unite. So that is the situation, which is very disappointing and sad.
Now, just under a year ago, we had the opposite situation. Last August, Unite questioned the GGCA's tactics after the bus company members, a number of bus company members defected to you. Can the GGCA really complain now it's happened the other way around?
Well, it never happened that way. That's the thing. The thing is that they had no evidence. They went on to GBC to complain. They did not do like I did, which I contacted Mr. Davis directly before going to media or going to going publicly. I did write to Mr. Davis. I did explain the situation to Mr. Davis. So there were discussions before me saying now publicly, because I confirmed and I went and saw it myself. So what I'm saying today is factual. So what they were saying was based on what they had heard. They had no concrete evidence on what they were talking about. Like I said, they lost their members for whatever the reason that they did not address or did address, I do not know. But like I said, I know that those people left Unite and joined the GGCA. I did not go down to the bus company. I did not hold any meeting with Unite members. And they cannot, like I said, there's nothing that they can say, look, we saw it.
Have you spoken to the members? What are the grievances here, and what are people asking for, and what is the reason that they might feel tempted to join another union?
Well, the reason they're feeling tempted to join, not tempted to join, but pressure to join another union, is the fact that we have a couple of members from Unite which are very vocal and keep scaremongering our members and telling them that we are not doing what we have to. On our behalf, there has been some shortfalls in terms of there has been lack of communication, which I hold my hand up, and perhaps we are responsible, but nonetheless it is for us to clear up with the members. And if we have done anything wrong, we do have to face a member says, yes, you're right, we have done it wrong, and we need to address it and correct it. It doesn't mean that we have done everything right. We could have done something wrong, but nonetheless, I think it is a matter of communication, and it is about sitting down with the members and discussing what it is that they're not happy with and what it is that we can do.
In response to the accusations of poaching, Unite's Mr. Davies told GBC he thought this was a bit of a distraction on part of the GGCA. Mr. Davies said he doesn't want the members of the bus company to be caught in the crossfire of this issue. He added there are some very genuine issues within the GBCL that need resolution, and that this should be the priority.
I'm not sure on what basis we're being accused of poaching. Certainly, I can recall, or you'll recall, this time last year when I gave an interview at Europa Point Stadium about public sector pay. I was asked a question about Unite members leaving within GBCL to the GGCA. And I said at that time that that was very much the nature of the competition between unions, the push and pull between two different unions. And also the GGCA gave an interview at that same time, and they actually posed the question that Unite should be asking itself why those members were leaving to join another union. And in that interview, they also said that there's two unions, and if members are unhappy, then there's a high possibility that they will move to another union. So I'm not sure if those sentiments were expressed a year ago, why those sentiments aren't necessarily still relevant today. As far as poaching is concerned, there's been no poaching on the part of Unite. We retained a body of bus drivers within GBCL, even when we saw a number resign a year ago. So we still represent our members within that particular organisation. And we have seen a large number of new joiners come back to Unite because of the problems that they are experiencing, both individually and collectively. We will represent them individually and collectively. We will do our best by them in terms of taking those issues forward. But in terms of any poaching, that's absolutely not the case.
In other news, Gibraltar has today refused entry to a third country national who is not a British national. They did not hold the correct visa for entry. This person did hold a UK residence permit, which would have previously permitted entry into Gibraltar. However, with the new arrangement, they did not qualify for entry. They were refused entry by both Borders and Coast Guard and the Schengen authorities. The flight was delayed by about 40 minutes as a result. The government says mail destined for Gibraltar travelled via Spain and was processed by Spanish customs for at least 25 years before a limited direct service through Gibraltar Airport was introduced in a 2019 contingency measure ahead of a possible hard Brexit. It says the treaty removes the need for those arrangements. Under the new system, mail from the UK is travelling by road through France and Spain before crossing into Gibraltar, while mail between Gibraltar and Spain has continued to move. You're watching GBC News. Still to come, ever wonder what the relationship between the governor and the chief minister is like behind the scenes? We'll have the third part of an exclusive interview with Sir Ben Bathurst after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The governor says there's no specific threat to Gibraltar which isn't faced by everyone else in the UK and Europe. Sir Ben Bathurst says the ROC remains vigilant on multiple levels, including against economic crime and threats to critical infrastructure, as well as cyber attacks. In an interview with GBC, the governor says he and the chief minister speak about 5 times a day on matters which the Constitution requires that they consult each other with. Jonathan Sacramento asked him about his relationship with Fabian Picardo.
Quite clear, really, because it's laid down in the Constitution, and I have my areas to deal with, which are external affairs, defence, internal security, including the police, and a number of appointments that I do, and then everything else really is the government of Gibraltar. But throughout the Constitution, there are references to me needing to consult the Chief Minister and the Chief Minister to consult me. So we must speak, probably about 5 times a day, one and another, to make sure that we are synchronised.
And are these conversations organic? Do you sometimes perhaps discuss matters outside your own respective remits?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think, it's perfectly reasonable for the Chief Minister to have a view on certain defence matters. And equally, if I think we can help on some of the issues that he is dealing with, particularly on treaty implementation, I mean, for example, matters to do with the entry and exit system, I suppose you could argue that is security. But equally customs, perhaps, which is not my area, but through working with His Majesty's government in Whitehall, that we can help here in the convent get the Chief Minister what he needs, the assistance that he needs. So it's very sort of symbiotic relationship.
Are there times when you disagree?
We have not had a disagreement to my knowledge. I think that's not to say that in the course of conversation one might not put an alternative view, and likewise he does with me, but I mean that's just normal normal business.
Let's talk about Gibraltar as a whole and its position in a changing world. We sit at the entrance of the Med. There's war in Europe, there's war in the Middle East, and increasing competition between major powers. Has Gibraltar's strategic importance changed at all?
I think it's been maintained. I think when you think about Gibraltar historically, I mean, there has been perpetual conflict. I think just in terms of what we've seen perhaps for the last sort of 60, 70 years, it's been an unusual period of peace, but that's not to say that there haven't been conflicts. Absolutely important as it's ever been. I think perhaps what's changed is that conflict quite often is below the threshold of warfare. And of course, in Ukraine, we see absolute conflict, but elsewhere in Europe, perhaps some of our adversaries are trying to perhaps attack more our way of life than life itself, but equally there's great risk in miscalculation, and as we can see in Ukraine, a very significant campaign being waged against the people of Ukraine.
What would you say is the biggest sort of external threat to Gibraltar? Is it instability, terrorism, cyber attack? Where do our priorities lie in terms of security?
I think we take a multi-domain approach. So the 5 domains are land, maritime, air, cyber, and space. So we need to make sure we're defending against all those areas. In terms of Gibraltar itself, I think there are wider threats as well. There's potentially a threat to the economy. If a significant sort of cyber attack or perhaps economic crime undermining people's confidence in Gibraltar. So I think these days there are multiple threats, and there could be threats to critical national infrastructure as well. But these aren't sort of peculiar to Gibraltar. They're what UK and what all of Europe faces and more widely. So it's a matter of monitoring and maintaining vigilance across all fronts, really.
A 22-year-old man and 16-year-old girl have pleaded guilty to assaulting police following an incident earlier this week. Ben Brown of McFarlane House pleaded guilty to resisting police and 2 counts of assaulting police. The teenager pleaded guilty to 1 count of resisting police and 4 counts of assaulting the officers. Brown, who had previously been remanded in custody, was granted bail in the sum of £1,000. The teenager remains on bail, although one of her bail conditions was removed while her curfew remains in place. Both will return to the Magistrates' Court on the 21st of August for sentencing. The GSD is calling on the government to explain why refurbishment works at St Joseph's School will not be completed on time. The opposition says parents whose children attend St Joseph's lower and upper primary schools have expressed surprise that government waited till the end of the last academic year to announce that pupils will have to attend school in porta cabins for some lessons as from September. It also warns that the temporary classrooms will reduce parking available to nearby residents and families collecting children from the school. However, the government says the deadline was August next year, and therefore the works will be completed on time. It says the porta cabins will avoid children having to cross the construction site. It says the schools are happy with the temporary arrangements and they should not be any less well provided than any other schools. Finally, the government says the temporary loss of parking is much less than the GST is claiming, and steps are being taken to minimise the impact. At the Magistrates' Court, a local man who allegedly breached his sexual offences prevention order has been granted bail. Karim Rudge pleaded not guilty to 2 charges dating back to last year. The Justices of the Peace heard how Karim Rudge allegedly deleted part of his web browsing history records from his phone. On a separate occasion, it's alleged Mr Rudge deleted chat history from 2 separate social media apps. The lay bench declined jurisdiction and granted bail to the 37-year-old. The matter was adjourned until the 24th of August. The Commonwealth Games draw to a close this weekend. European football for local referees and more. Robin Shepherd-Kapura with the latest.
Day 8 of competition at the 2026 Commonwealth Games. A quiet one for Team Gibraltar. None of our athletes in action today. Tomorrow, though, having been waiting patiently for over a week, our pair of Adam Stevens and Brad Morris Mackenzie finally take to the floor in judo. Sunday is the final day of competition. To football, and following defeat to Swedish champions Mjällby earlier this week, Lincoln Red Imps drop into the third round of Europa League qualifiers. They'll face Cypriot champions Omonia Nicosia on Thursday. First leg is at home at Europa Point. Staying in Europe, last night a team of Gibraltar officials took charge of a UEFA Conference League second-round qualifier in Northern Ireland. Seth Gallia refereed the match between Coleraine FC and Helsinki.
And that's all from tonight's news. More online, more on our social pages, as well as on our Radio Gibraltar news summaries on the hour, every hour. That's from 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. From the team, from myself, thanks for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Good night.